My aunt left me a bed and breakfast in New Hampshire because she had no children, no husband, and apparently no better enemies. That is what I think now. At the time, I thought she had left me a miracle. I was 31, unemployed, recently separated, and living in a short-term rental above a Thai restaurant in Worcester that made my clothes smell like oil no matter how often I washed them. I had been working front desk at a chain hotel until the new management company decided that one person could do the work of 3 people if the person was desperate enough. I was not desperate enough. Then rent came due. Then my car needed brakes. Then my ex sent me a photo of the dog we used to share, and I spent an entire afternoon sitting on the bathroom floor like someone had died. So, when a lawyer called to tell me my great-aunt Lenora had died and left me a property in northern New Hampshire, I did not ask enough questions. I remembered Aunt Lenora only in fragments. Christmas cards with neat handwriting, a black coat with silver buttons, a perfume that smelled like violets and cold powder. Her laughing once at my father's funeral, not because anything was funny, but because someone dropped a tray of sandwiches and grief had become too heavy to hold without breaking. She had owned a bed and breakfast for decades, somewhere near the White Mountains. My mother had visited once when she was young and said the house was beautiful, but too aware of itself. I didn't understand what that meant. I do now. The place was called Briar Glen House. It sat outside a town named Harrow, tucked against a narrow road that wound through pine forest, stone walls, and old farms that had become vacation homes for people with too much money and not enough imagination. In summer, hikers passed through. In autumn, leaf peepers clogged the roads. In winter, skiers rented everything with a roof. By the time I arrived, it was late November. Tourist season had exhaled. The trees were bare. The ground was half frozen. The sky had that flat New England gray that makes every old house look like it has been waiting for news. Briar Glen House stood at the end of a gravel drive, 3 stories tall, white clapboard with dark green shutters, a wraparound porch, a steep roof, and a widow's walk at the top that looked out toward the mountains. A hand-painted sign near the road read, "Briar Glen House, bed and breakfast, vacancy by reservation." The sign swung in the wind, though the air was still. I parked beside a detached carriage house and sat in my car for a minute with the engine off. The place was beautiful. That was the first problem. Horrible things are easier to distrust when they look horrible. Briar Glen looked like something from a postcard. Frost silvered the porch rail. Smoke curled from a chimney, even though I knew no one was inside. Window boxes held dead vines twisted into delicate brown loops. A stone path led from the driveway to the front steps, and beside it grew rose bushes, so black and thorny they looked burned. I had inherited all of it. The house, the land, the furnishings, the business name. The debts, probably. The lawyer had called it an operating opportunity. That phrase should have frightened me more than ghosts. I had been told the property was closed for the season, but not abandoned. A caretaker would meet me there, give me the keys, walk me through the basic systems, and explain house operations. The caretaker was waiting on the porch. He was older than I expected, maybe 70, tall and thin with a wool cap pulled low, a gray beard, and a face built entirely out of weather. He wore a heavy flannel jacket and held a ring of keys in one hand. "You're Clara's boy," he said when I stepped out. My mother was Clara. "Then you're Clara's boy." "My name is Daniel." He looked at me for a moment. "House knows family. before names. I almost got back in the car. Instead, I walked toward the porch. "Are you Mr. Reed?" "Elias Reed." He did not offer a hand. I did not mind. The porch boards creaked under me, but not under him. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the strangest, just the first. Elias unlocked the front door and pushed it open. Warm air breathed out, not stale, warm. Wood smoke, cinnamon, old books, beeswax polish, something floral underneath, violets, Aunt Lenora's perfume. The foyer was wide, with dark wood floors, a staircase rising straight ahead, a reception desk on the left, a sitting parlor on the right, and a hallway leading toward the dining room and kitchen. Old framed photographs covered the walls. Mountains, snow, summer porches, guests seated at breakfast tables. My aunt standing beside the reception desk in a blue dress, looking younger than I had ever seen her. Above the desk hung a brass bell. The kind guests ring when no one is there. A little sign below it read, "Please ring once someone had scratched beneath it. Only once Elias saw me looking." Don't ring that. Why have it then? For guests. I'm not a guest? He looked at me with something almost like pity. Not yet. I let that go because I didn't know where to put it. Elias walked me through the first floor, reception desk, parlor, dining room with 8 tables set as if breakfast might start any minute, kitchen with old commercial equipment, copper pots, and a pantry full of labeled jars. Laundry room, office, mud room, a back staircase for staff, a locked cellar door beneath the main stairs. "Boilers down there," he said. "Electrical, preserves. Don't go down after dark." I stared at him. "After dark?" He continued walking. The second floor held guest rooms, 6 of them. Each door had a small brass number and a painted nameplate. Room 1, the Maple Room Room 2, the Blue Room Room 3, the Orchard Room Room 4, the Captain's Room Room 5, the Rose Room Room 6, the North Room. The third floor had 2 larger suites, Room 7, the Nursery Room 8, the Widow's Suite. At the end of the third floor hall was a narrow door with no number. It was painted the same color as the wall. No nameplate, no keyhole, just a brass knob polished bright by use. "What's that room?" Elias did not look at it. "Not rented." "Storage?" "Not rented." Every answer he gave sounded like the top layer of a deeper answer. We went back downstairs. In the office, Elias opened a desk drawer and took out a thick leather binder. Not new, not official. The cover was cracked, dark brown, tied shut with a black ribbon. He placed it in front of me. "Your aunt's house book." I reached for it. He placed one hand on top. "Read before sunset." I glanced at the window. The afternoon was already dimming. "What is it?" "Rules." There it was. I closed my eyes for 1 second. Of course, every strange place has rules. Every old man who knows too much has a binder, a notebook, a folder, a list. Every desperate person has a choice to leave before dark and a reason not to. I looked at Elias. If I walk out right now, smart. If I sell the place, possible. If I stay, he lifted his hand from the binder. Then read. I untied the ribbon. The first page was written in Aunt Lenora's handwriting. Neat, slanted, elegant. "Daniel, if you are reading this, then I am either dead, gone, or too far from the house to answer questions safely. I am sorry. I know that is not enough. It was never enough when my aunt said it to me either. Briar Glen is not evil. That is important. Evil has intention. This house has memory, appetite, pride, and rules. The rooms remember their guests. Some remember better than others. Do not run the house as a hotel. Do not rent to anyone who arrives after dark without a reservation. Do not let a room choose its own guest. Each room has its own rules. Read them. Follow them. Add only what you survive. Do not ring the desk bell unless a living guest is waiting. Do not sleep in the same room 2 nights in a row during your first week. Do not leave a guest alone with the house book. Do not ask Elias what happened in the north room unless he asks you to. Do not open the unnumbered room. If the unnumbered room opens itself, leave the house by the kitchen door and do not look at the staircase. If you hear me call you from upstairs, answer only, "No vacancy." I stopped reading. The house was silent around us. Too silent. I looked up at Elias. He watched me without expression. My aunt wrote this? Yes. What was wrong with her? She stayed too long. That's not an answer. It is the only answer that matters at first. I turned the page. Aunt Lenora had divided the binder by room. The first section was titled General House Rules. Rule 1. Lock the front door at sunset. If it is already locked, do not unlock it to check. Rule 2. The porch light should be warm yellow. If it turns blue, do not admit anyone that night. Rule 3. If the desk bell rings once, greet the guest. If it rings twice, say, "No vacancy." If it rings 3 times, leave the desk immediately and go to the kitchen. Rule 4. Never serve breakfast before 7 a.m., even if the dining room is full. Rule 5. If a guest asks for a room by number, give them a different room. Living guests ask by name or availability. Rule 6. If a guest asks whether Aunt Lenora still keeps the house, say, "She has stepped away." Rule 7. Do not use the front staircase between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock a.m. Rule 8. If the back staircase has more than 12 steps, return to the floor you came from. Rule 9. If you smell violets in the office, close the house book. Rule 10. If a room key is warm, the room is occupied. Rule 11. If a room key is cold, the room is waiting. Rule 12. If a room key bleeds, do not rent that room. Rule 13. If someone knocks from the cellar after sunset, ask what they forgot. If they say, "My coat," ignore them. If they say, "My name," call Elias. Rule 14. If the dining room has one more place setting than guests, remove the extra chair before breakfast. Rule 15. If the grandfather clock stops, do not wind it. Ask the house what time it wants, then leave the room before it answers. Rule 16. Do not sleep in the north room. Rule 17. Do not clean the widow's suite alone. Rule 18. Do not enter the nursery if you hear humming. Rule 19. If the unnumbered room appears on the reservation ledger, burn the page. Rule 20. If the house says please, it is lying. I looked at Elias again. No. He nodded once. Fair. No, I mean I'm not doing this. Then go before sunset. The same offer. Always before sunset. Always before the first ring, the first knock, the first blue light. I looked through the office window. The sun was low behind the trees. I had inherited a property that could either ruin me, save me, or eat me. I should have left. Instead, I asked the question desperate people always ask. How much is the place worth? Elias's eyes softened. Less than you hope if you sell, more than you understand if you stay. That sounds like something people say before explaining a curse. No curse, just inheritance. He turned to leave. Where are you going? Home. You're not staying? I don't stay past sunset unless called. What if something happens? Something will. He took one key from the ring and placed it on the desk. A brass key with no label. Front door, kitchen door, office, your room. Which room is mine? For tonight, Maple. I checked the binder. The Maple room section began with a pressed red leaf taped to the page. Elias saw me looking. Read before you go upstairs. Then he went to the front door. At the threshold, he stopped. One thing your aunt didn't write. Of course. If you hear someone walking above you, count the footsteps. This house walks differently from guests. How? He opened the door. Guests stop at doors. He left. I watched him cross the porch, step down onto the path, and walk toward an old pickup I had not noticed parked beneath the trees. He drove away slowly, taillights fading down the gravel drive. The front door clicked shut by itself. I was alone in Briar Glen House. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. The house was warm. The pipes clicked. The old clock in the foyer ticked. Outside, wind moved through bare branches. I stood in the office with the house book open and told myself that eccentric old New England families wrote strange instructions because they liked feeling important. Then the porch light turned blue. I saw it through the office window. One moment, warm yellow. The next, cold blue. The entire porch washed in pale color like moonlight under water. Rule 2. If the porch light turns blue, do not admit anyone that night. I went to the front door and locked it, once. I did not unlock it to check. The moment the deadbolt slid into place, someone knocked. 3 slow knocks. Not on the front door, on the inside of it. I stepped back. The knock came again, from inside the wood. Tap, tap, tap. A woman's voice whispered through the door frame. Daniel? Aunt Lenora? No, no. I had heard her voice maybe twice in my life, but I knew it anyway. Soft, dry, amused. Daniel, I'm cold. I remembered the first page. If you hear me call you from upstairs, answer only, no vacancy. She was not upstairs. She was in the door, another edge, another gap. Daniel, she whispered, let me explain. The blue porch light flickered. I backed away and said nothing. The voice sighed. Clara's boy, then. My mother's name in that voice almost broke me. Almost. The desk bell rang once. I spun toward the reception desk. The brass bell sat perfectly still. Still, the sound echoed through the foyer. 1 ring. Rule 3. If the desk bell rings once, greet the guest. But Rule 2 said do not admit anyone that night. The house had not waited 15 minutes before making the rules argue. A shape moved beyond the frosted glass of the front door. Someone outside now, or something pretending it had been outside all along. The desk bell rang once more. 2nd ring. Rule 3. If it rings twice, say, no vacancy. I swallowed. No vacancy. The knocking stopped. The shape behind the glass stilled. Then Aunt Lenora's voice whispered, good. I hated that word from her. The porch light returned to yellow. The shape outside vanished. The foyer clock ticked louder. I went back to the office and wrote in the margin of the house book. If porch light turns blue and desk bell rings, follow the bell only after 2nd ring. Do not open door. The ink dried immediately. The page seemed to absorb the rule. I did not like that. I read the Maple Room rules next. Room 1, the Maple Room. This room is safest for family, but safest does not mean safe. Rule 1, close the curtains before sleeping. If they are open when you wake, do not look outside. Rule 2, the quilt should be red. If it is green, sleep on top of it, not under it. Rule 3, do not remove leaves from the floor after midnight. Rule 4. If someone knocks on the wardrobe, ask which season. If they say autumn, open the Bible on the nightstand, but do not read it. Rule 5. If you smell maple syrup and smoke, leave the room and sleep in the office. Rule 6. If the room feels larger in the dark, keep one hand on the bedpost until morning. Rule 7. If a child asks to share the bed, tell them breakfast is at 7. Rule 8. If the key grows cold while you are inside, the room no longer recognizes you. Leave calmly. I looked at the brass key on the desk. It was warm, not hot. Warm from a pocket, maybe, or from a hand. Mine was cold. I took the binder, my overnight bag, and the key, then climbed the front stairs before I could think too hard. I did not use the back stairs. I had not counted the steps. The second-floor hallway smelled faintly of dust and lavender. Wall sconces glowed warm along floral wallpaper. Each room door stood closed. The nameplates gleamed in the low light. The maple room was first on the left. The key turned smoothly. Inside was exactly what I would have expected from an old bed and breakfast room. Queen bed, red quilt, white curtains, small fireplace, wardrobe, nightstand, braided rug, framed print of red maple trees beside a river. A bowl of wrapped peppermints sat on the dresser. A guest book lay beside it. I did not touch it. I closed the curtains, checked the quilt, read, checked the wardrobe. Silent. No leaves on the floor. I set the housebook on the nightstand and sat on the bed. The room felt normal. The house did not. At 9 p.m., I heard footsteps above me. The third floor. Slow. Measured. Not Elias. Not a guest. I counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause. Then a door opened. Closed. A guest would have stopped at a door. The house had stopped too. Maybe the house had doors for itself. At 9:17, my phone rang. No service had shown in the house before. Now one bar appeared. The screen displayed Aunt Lenora. I stared at it until it stopped ringing. A voicemail appeared. I did not play it. Then the house phone rang downstairs. I had not noticed a house phone on the reception desk before, but I heard it clearly. An old bell ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Then silence. A voice floated up the staircase. Briar Glen House, no vacancy. A woman's voice. Not Aunt Lenora's. Mine. No, not mine. My mother's. I stayed in the maple room. At 10:03, leaves appeared on the floor. Not many. 3 red maple leaves lay near the fireplace. Dry. Perfect. They had not been there before. Rule 3. Do not remove leaves from the floor after midnight. It was not midnight. Could I remove them? I decided no. Rules often say, times because that is when people learned the hard way, not because everything before was safe. The leaves stayed. At 10:44, someone knocked on the wardrobe. A gentle knock from inside the wood. Tap, tap. I sat upright. Rule 4. If someone knocks on the wardrobe, ask which season. If they say autumn, open the Bible on the nightstand, but do not read it. The wardrobe knocked again. Tap, tap. I whispered. Which season? A child's voice answered. Autumn. I reached for the Bible on the nightstand. It was old, black leather, edges of the pages gilt. I opened it in the middle and set it flat beside the lamp. I did not read. The wardrobe creaked, not opening, settling. The child inside whispered, "Wrong book." I did not touch it again. The knocking stopped. At 11:30, the house became busy. That is the only way to explain it. Below me, chairs moved in the dining room. A door opened. Water ran through pipes. Something heavy crossed the foyer. The desk bell rang once, then twice. A man laughed in the parlor. Cutlery clinked. A woman coughed. For a building with no guests, Briar Glen had begun operating. I picked up the house book and opened to the general rules again. Do not serve breakfast before 7 a.m., even if the dining room is full. Good to know. Not helpful at 11:30. The maple room key, which I had placed on the nightstand, grew cold. Rule 8. If the key grows cold while you are inside, the room no longer recognizes you. Leave calmly. I touched it. Ice cold. The room temperature had not changed. I got up slowly, put on my shoes, took the housebook and bag, and opened the door. The hallway outside was longer than before. Not much, just enough that the stairs seemed farther away. Room 2's door, the blue room, stood ajar. A blue light glowed from inside. I did not look. Room 3, the orchard room, smelled strongly of apples, though the door was closed. Room 4, the captain's room, leaked the sound of water against wood. Room 5, the rose room, had something scratching softly at the other side of the door. Room 6, the north room, was silent. Too silent. I walked calmly to the stairs. The house walked above me, footsteps in the ceiling, matching mine. 1, 2, 3. When I stopped, they did not. 4, 5, 6. They continued over my head, down the hallway, past where the hall should have ended. Guests stop at doors. The house did not. I made it downstairs. The dining room was full, not with people, with place settings. Every table had plates, cups, folded napkins, silverware, water glasses, and little vases with white flowers. Chairs had been pulled out as if guests had just stepped away. There were 9 place settings. I counted again. 9. The house had no living guests. Rule 14. If the dining room has one more place setting than guests, remove the extra chair before breakfast. What if there were no guests and 9 settings? 1 more than 0 was 1, not 9. Or maybe there were 8 guests I couldn't see. I backed out of the dining room without touching anything. In the foyer, the grandfather clock stopped. The ticking ceased mid-swing. Rule 15. If the grandfather clock stops, do not wind it. Ask the house what time it wants, then leave the room before it answers. I wanted to ignore it. Then the clock hand spun backward. Fast, too fast. I whispered, "What time do you want?" The clock hand stopped at 2:17. No, thank you. I left the foyer immediately and went into the office, closing the door behind me. The moment I did, the clock in the foyer began ticking again. From behind the office door, the house answered too late. Breakfast. At midnight, I called Elias. He had left his number taped to the office phone. I used my cell first. No service, of course. The office phone worked. Elias answered on the second ring. Read. The maple key went cold. You left calmly? Yes. Good. The porch light turned blue earlier. You opened the door? No. Good. The dining room is set for 9. He was quiet. How many guests? None. That you know of. My mouth went dry. Elias, don't enter the dining room before 7. I wasn't planning to. Plans matter less than doors. Something knocked from the cellar beneath the office. 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. I froze. Elias heard it through the phone. His voice sharpened. Ask what it forgot. I swallowed. What did you forget? From beneath the floorboards, a voice whispered, my coat. Rule 13. If they say my coat, ignore them. I said nothing. The knock came again. What did you forget? Elias asked through the phone, so low I almost didn't hear. The cellar voice answered, my name. Elias cursed. not loudly, but with feeling. "Put the phone on the floor." "What?" "Now." I placed the receiver on the office floorboards. Elias spoke through it, voice tinny and old. "This is Elias Reed. The cellar is closed." The floorboards buckled once. The voice below whispered, "House is open," Elias said. "Not to you." The cellar door under the stairs rattled so violently I heard it through the office wall. Elias continued, "No vacancy." A long silence. Then, from beneath the floor, "One room always vacant." The phone went dead. I picked it up. No dial tone. The office smelled suddenly of violets. Rule 9. If you smell violets in the office, close the house book. The binder was open on the desk. I closed it. The violet smell faded. The house became quiet again. Not peaceful. Waiting. I slept in the office chair with the lamp on and the house book closed in front of me like a shield. I woke at 3:08 a.m. to the sound of humming, a woman's lullaby, soft, coming from upstairs, the nursery. Rule 18. Do not enter the nursery if you hear humming. Fine, I did not intend to. Then the front desk bell rang once. I jerked awake. One ring. Greet the guest. No. The house was trying again. The bell rang twice. "No vacancy," I said from the office. The bell rang a third time. Rule 3. If it rings 3 times, leave the desk immediately and go to the kitchen. I was not at the desk, but the sound pulled at me. That is the only way I can say it. The bell did not just ring in the foyer. It rang inside my teeth, inside my hands, inside the part of me that had spent years working hotels and knew when a guest was waiting. I stood before I decided to, then caught myself with one hand on the office door. The house whispered from the other side, "Please." Rule 20. If the house says please, it is lying. I sat back down. The bell rang again, 3 times. Then silence. At 4 a.m., a guest appeared on the porch. I saw him through the office window when the moon came out. A man stood beneath the porch light, wearing a dark coat, a brimmed hat, and carrying a small suitcase. He faced the door patiently. Living, dead, lost, waiting, I did not know. The porch light was yellow, not blue. The desk bell did not ring. No one knocked. The man simply stood there. At 4:12, snow began falling around him, only around him. Not in the yard, not on the driveway. A narrow curtain of snow surrounding one patient guest. I opened the house book despite the violet risk and found no rule for this. None. I turned to the blank pages at the back. A line appeared in Aunt Lenora's handwriting. If a guest waits without ringing, the room has invited him. Below that, another line wrote itself. Do not ask which room. The desk bell rang once. I looked toward the foyer. The man on the porch lifted his suitcase. The bell rang twice. No vacancy, I said. He did not move. The bell rang 3 times. The office door opened by itself. Not fast. Slowly. Politely. The hallway beyond was dark. The kitchen door at the back of the hall stood open, warm yellow light spilling out. Rule 3 said go to the kitchen. I stood, grabbed the housebook, and walked. The foyer felt larger than before. The reception desk seemed farther from the stairs. The front door glass showed the guest outside, still waiting, head bowed. As I passed the desk, the bell rang once by itself. I ignored it. The kitchen smelled like coffee and fresh bread. Every surface was clean. Copper pots hung above the island. The old stove glowed faintly. On the kitchen table sat a tray. 1 cup of coffee, 1 plate, 1 folded napkin, 1 room key. The key was not brass. It was black iron, no number, no label. cold enough that frost formed around it on the wooden tray. The unnumbered room. I backed away. Behind me, the kitchen door closed. The house whispered, "Guest waiting." I said, "No vacancy." The lights went out. In the dark kitchen, Aunt Lenora's voice whispered close to my ear, "Then why did you inherit an inn?" The lights came back on. The tray was gone. The kitchen door opened. I returned to the office and did not look at the porch. At 6:30 a.m., I heard Elias's truck in the driveway. I almost cried, not from relief exactly, from the sudden proof that morning still existed. The front door opened at 6:45. I had not unlocked it. Elias stepped in carrying a paper bag and 2 coffees. He took one look at me in the office chair and stopped. "Which room?" "Maple. Then it went cold." He nodded. "You left?" "Yes." "Good. Stop saying that." He almost smiled. "What else?" I told him. The blue porch light, the bell, the dining room, the cellar, the man waiting without ringing, the black key in the kitchen. At that, his face changed. He set the coffees down carefully. "Did you touch it?" "No." "Did you ask which room?" "No." "Did it enter?" "I don't think so." He looked toward the stairs. "Then the house is negotiating." "With who?" "With whatever your aunt kept out." I thought of the cellar voice. One room always vacant. "The unnumbered room?" Elias did not answer. Instead, he walked to the reception desk and opened the reservation ledger. I had not noticed it before. A huge book bound in dark green leather sitting beneath the counter. He turned to the current date. The page should have been blank. It was not. Written in Aunt Lenora's neat hand were 8 reservations. Room 1, Daniel Mercer. Room 2, Mr. and Mrs. Wycliffe. Room 3, Thomas Bell. Room 4, Captain Harrow. Room 5, Miss Eliza Reed. Room 6, Elias Reed. Room 7, the children. Room 8, Lenora Mercer. My mouth went dry, every room occupied. One name I recognized, Lenora Mercer, my aunt. One name made Elias go pale, Miss Eliza Reed. "Elias," I said carefully. "Who is Eliza Reed?" He closed the ledger. "My sister. Is she alive?" He looked toward the stairs. "Not in any way that helps." The desk bell rang once. Elias did not move. It rang twice. He said, "No vacancy." It rang 3 times. The kitchen door opened down the hall. Elias took a slow breath. "Don't follow the bell this morning." "Why?" "Because morning rules are different." He opened the house book to a blank page. Aunt Lenora's handwriting appeared. Morning. 1 Instructions. Rule 1. Do not serve breakfast to guests who were not admitted. Rule 2. Do not clear plates from tables where you cannot see faces. Rule 3. Do not let Elias enter room 5. Rule 4. Do not let Daniel enter room 6. Rule 5. If Lenora appears in the widow's suite, tell her the house is full. Rule 6. If the unnumbered room is listed, burn the ledger page before noon. Rule 7. If the unnumbered room is not listed, ask why. Elias read the last rule and shut his eyes. The ledger on the reception desk opened by itself. Pages flipped fast, then stopped. A new line wrote itself beneath the 8 occupied rooms. Room 9, vacancy. The unnumbered room had given itself a number. And from upstairs, behind the wall-colored door at the end of the 3rd floor hall, someone knocked politely. The knock came from the 3rd floor. Polite, patient, 3 soft taps from the door that was not supposed to have a number. Tap, tap, tap. Elias Reed stood in the foyer with Aunt Lenora's housebook open in his hands. staring at the ceiling like he had been waiting years to hear that sound and had still hoped he never would. The reservation ledger lay open on the reception desk. Room 9, vacancy. The ink was still wet. I looked from the ledger to Elias. "Burn the page," I said. Morning 1 instructions. Rule 6. If the unnumbered room is listed, burn the ledger page before noon. Elias did not move. Elias. His eyes stayed on the stairs. It named itself. Yes, so we burn the page. That is not the same as listing. It says room 9. It says vacancy. I hated how careful his voice was. The knock sounded again from upstairs. Tap, tap, tap. Not louder, not impatient. It did not need to be. The house around us seemed to listen. The grandfather clock ticked in the foyer. The dining room smelled like coffee that no living person had brewed. Somewhere above us, floorboards shifted under weight I could not see. I reached for the ledger. Elias caught my wrist. "Not with your bare hand." He took a pair of white cotton gloves from the drawer behind the reception desk and handed them to me. I put them on. The page felt warm through the gloves. Not room temperature, body warm, like it had been resting under someone's palm. I tore it out. The house groaned, not loud, a deep complaint inside the walls. The dining room chairs scraped backward all at once. I froze. Elias whispered, "Don't look." "Why?" "Because breakfast isn't for us." The chairs scraped again. Plates clinked. Something poured liquid into cups. I kept my eyes on the ledger page. The 8 names and the 9th line looked darker now. Room 1, Daniel Mercer. Room 2, Mr. and Mrs. Wycliffe. Room 3, Thomas Bell. Room 4, Captain Harrow. Room 5, Miss Eliza Reed. Room 6, Elias Reed. Room 7, the children. Room 8, Lenora Mercer. Room 9, vacancy. My name was on the page too. I had missed that in the shock. Room 1, the maple room. It had rejected me in the night when the key turned cold, but the ledger still had me checked in. "What happens if I burn my name with it?" I whispered. Elias's jaw tightened. "Better than leaving it in the book." That was not comforting. We went to the kitchen. The kitchen looked normal again. No black key, no tray, no invisible breakfast, just copper pots, a stove, a wide wooden table, and windows looking out onto the frost-covered back garden. Elias opened the stove door. Ash stirred inside. "Paper first," he said. "What?" "This house respects order. Paper first, then rooms, then doors." He struck a match. I held the ledger page over the flame. The corner blackened. For a second, it would not catch. The ink on the page moved. Room 9, vacancy became Room 9, waiting. I shoved the paper deeper into the stove. The whole page caught at once. White flame, not orange. White. I stepped back. From upstairs, something knocked harder. Tap, tap, tap. The flame folded the page inward. The names darkened before they burned. Mine, Elias's, Lenora's, Eliza Reed's, the children, all of them twisting in black ink. When the page became ash, the knocking stopped. The house went quiet. Elias closed the stove. "Now breakfast," he said. "I thought Rule 1 said not to serve breakfast to guests who were not admitted." "Yes. So we don't serve breakfast. We remove it." He said that like the difference mattered. It did. The dining room was full, not with people, with evidence that people had been there a moment before. 9 place settings, 9 chairs pulled back, 9 napkins unfolded, 9 cups of coffee steaming, 9 plates. On each plate sat a different breakfast. Pancakes, eggs, toast, oatmeal, stewed apples, a bowl of berries, one plate with only a slice of raw onion, one with a child's portion of scrambled eggs, and at the head table, one plate covered by a silver lid. The extra chair was at that table. Elias stood in the doorway and counted under his breath. "One more place setting than visible guests," he said. "There are no visible guests." "That does not mean there are none. Rule 2. Do not clear plates from tables where you cannot see faces." I looked at every chair. Empty. No faces. "So we don't clear any plates?" We removed the extra chair. Rule 14 from the General House Rules. If the dining room has one more place setting than guests, remove the extra chair before breakfast. It was after breakfast had been set, but before 7. Maybe still before breakfast. The grandfather clock in the foyer struck once. 6:55. Elias pointed to the head table. "That one. How do you know?" "Because it is waiting for someone who hasn't come down." I moved toward the chair. The room smelled wonderful. That made it worse. Fresh coffee, maple syrup, butter, warm bread, a home smell, a safe smell. As I reached the head table, the silver lid on the plate rattled. I did not touch it. I grabbed the chair back. It was cold. Not just cold, outdoor cold. Snow cold. I lifted it. The moment its legs left the floor, every coffee cup in the room tipped toward me. Not spilling, turning, as if invisible hands had lifted them in greeting. Elias said, "Don't acknowledge." I carried the chair out of the dining room and into the hallway. The cups lowered. Behind me, a woman said, "No seat for me?" I kept walking. Not because I was brave, because Elias was beside me, whispering, "Kitchen, put it in the kitchen." I set the chair beside the kitchen table. It immediately turned to face the wall. The clock struck 7. In the dining room, forks touched plates. Breakfast began. I stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at Elias. "Who is eating?" "Rooms," he said. "That doesn't mean anything." "It will." He opened Aunt Lenora's house book and turned to room 2. "The blue room first." "Why?" "Because Mr. and Mrs. Wycliffe are listed there, and they always come down late if you don't check." He showed me the room section. Room 2, the blue room. Rule 1, the walls should be blue. If they are gray, leave before speaking. Rule 2, do not open the window, even if the room smells of rain. Rule 3, if you hear arguing inside, knock once and say, "Breakfast is served." Do not wait for an answer. Rule 4, if only one voice answers, do not enter. Rule 5, if both Wycliffes are visible, do not stand between them. Rule 6, if the bed is wet, close the door and mark the room occupied. Rule 7, if a woman in blue asks what year it is, say, "Later than you hoped." I read the final rule twice. "Are the Wycliffes real?" Elias looked toward the dining room. "They paid in advance." "That's not what I asked." "It's the answer the house accepts." We climbed the front stairs after 7 because the general rule only forbade using them between 2 and 3 in the morning. Still, the staircase felt different in daylight. The banister was warm under my hand. The portraits along the wall watched less obviously, but not less carefully. Room 2's door was closed. From inside came low arguing. A man, a woman, not shouting. The kind of argument people have when the fight is old and both sides know every step. Elias nodded at me. I knocked once. "Breakfast is served." The arguing stopped. 2 voices answered together. "Thank you." Elias relaxed. "Good." The word was less annoying when it meant we had not died. We moved on. Room 3, the orchard room. The door smelled strongly of apples. Not fresh apples, fermenting ones, sweet and sharp. Elias handed me the house book. Room 3, the orchard room. Rule 1, do not eat anything left on the dresser. Rule 2, if apples fall from the ceiling, stand under the doorway until they stop. Rule 3, if Thomas Bell asks for a knife, tell him breakfast provides one. Rule 4, do not mention harvest. Rule 5, if the room contains trees, close the door and wait 1 hour. Rule 6, if the room contains snow, call Elias. Rule 7, if the mirror shows an orchard behind you, do not turn around. Why would a guest ask for a knife? I said. Elias gave me a look. Because he wants one. I knocked. No answer. The orchard room key hung from the ring at my belt, warm, occupied. I did not open it. From inside, a man said, "Knife." I swallowed. "Breakfast provides one." A soft laugh came through the door. Then the smell of apples faded by half. Elias nodded. Room 4, the captain's room. Even with the door closed, I heard water, not dripping, waves, wood creaking, rope strain. The rules were taped into the house book with a strip of yellowing linen. Room 4, the captain's room. Rule 1, do not enter during foghorns. Rule 2, if the floor rolls under your feet, sit down immediately. Rule 3, if Captain Harrow asks whether land is visible, say, "Not yet." Rule 4, do not touch the compass on the mantel. Rule 5, if the bed smells of seawater, change only the top sheet. Rule 6, if gulls are heard after midnight, close the curtains and sleep elsewhere. Rule 7, if the captain offers you passage, decline once. If he offers twice, leave the room. I looked at Elias. This house is in New Hampshire. Captain Harrow knew that when he died here. Why is there seawater? The rooms remember guests better than geography. A foghorn sounded inside room 4. Low, distant, impossible. Elias grabbed my sleeve and pulled me 2 steps back. Rule 1, do not enter during foghorns. We waited. Another foghorn. Then silence. Inside, a man coughed. Land, I said, not yet. The water sounds calmed. We moved on. Room 5, the rose room. Elias stopped before we reached the door. Rule 3 from morning 1. Do not let Elias enter room 5. He knew it too. He handed me the house book and took 2 steps back. My sister, he said quietly, will ask kindly. Ask what? To let me in. His face had become gray. I opened to the rose room. Room 5, the rose room. Rule 1, wear gloves before touching anything inside. Rule 2, if roses bloom from the wallpaper, do not smell them. Rule 3, if the thorns point toward the bed, do not approach the bed. Rule 4, if Miss Eliza Reed asks for Elias, say, he is in the garden. Rule 5, if she says the garden is frozen, say, spring is late. Rule 6, do not bleed in this room. Rule 7, if the door locks behind you, do not ask to be let out. I put the cotton gloves back on. Elias stood in the hall, looking everywhere except the door. I unlocked room 5 and opened it. The room was beautiful. That was the second problem with Briar Glen. It never looked like a nightmare at first. The rose room had pale pink walls, a brass bed, white curtains, and a fireplace with a carved mantel. Rose-patterned wallpaper covered the wall behind the bed. A vase of fresh pink roses sat on the dresser, fresh, in late November. The key in my hand was warm, occupied. The room smelled of rosewater and dust. Near the window stood a young woman in a pale dress, maybe 20, maybe younger. Dark hair braided over one shoulder, face turned toward the glass. She did not look like something rotted or monstrous. She looked like someone waiting for a carriage that had been delayed by weather. She turned. "Elias?" Her voice broke on the name. Behind me in the hallway, Elias inhaled sharply. I kept my body in the doorway, blocking his view. "He is in the garden," I said. Eliza Reed's expression changed. Pain first, then anger. "The garden is frozen." "Spring is late," she smiled. A terrible, sad smile. It always is. The roses in the vase bloomed wider. Thorns pushed from their stems, long and black. One scratched the dresser top. I stepped backward. Eliza looked past me. "Brother?" Elias took one step forward. I slammed the door. The handle twisted from the inside. Not hard, gently, like a sister trying not to frighten a brother. Elias stood frozen in the hall. Did she look old? No. His eyes closed. She never does. What happened? He shook his head. Not before room 6. Room 6, the north room. Morning rule 4, do not let Daniel enter room 6. General rule 16, do not sleep in the north room. The reservation ledger had listed room 6, Elias Reed. So the room that I could not enter belonged to him. We stood before its door. No smell, no sound. The brass nameplate looked colder than the others. The north room. Elias held out his hand for the housebook. I did not give it to him. "Read me the rules," he said. No. His eyes opened. "Daniel, it says don't let me enter. It doesn't say you should. This room is mine today." I noticed. If I do not check it, the house will assume refusal. What does that mean? It means the room chooses the terms next. I opened to the north room section. The page felt cold. Room 6. The north room rule 1. Do not sleep in this room. Rule 2. Do not enter this room alone. Rule 3. If the window is open, do not close it until you have counted the trees. Rule 4. There should be 13 trees visible from the window. If there are 12, leave immediately. Rule 5. If snow is falling inside, do not speak. Rule 6. If Elias is present, do not let him touch the mirror. Rule 7. If Daniel is present, he must not cross the threshold. Rule 8. If Lenora is in the chair, ask whose room she wants. Rule 9. If the bed is made, unmake it before leaving. Rule 10. If the bed is occupied, close the door and call Elias. I looked up slowly. If the bed is occupied, call you? Yes. But if you're inside, then call anyway. The house loved impossible instructions. Elias took a key from his own pocket, not from my ring. An iron key, old, darker than the others. He unlocked the north room. I stood to the side. He looked at me. "Whatever you hear, do not enter." "I know, you don't, but remember anyway." He opened the door and stepped inside. I stayed outside. From the hall, I could see only a slice of the room. White wall, gray carpet, one corner of a bed, pale winter light from a window. Then Elias moved deeper, out of sight. The room was silent. Too silent. I held the housebook open to the north room rules. A minute passed, then another. Snow began drifting out under the door, tiny flakes across the hall runner. Rule 5. If snow is falling inside, do not speak. I closed my mouth. Inside the room, Elias coughed once. Then came a sound like a window sliding open. Wind entered the room. Cold flowed into the hallway. I wanted to call his name. I did not. Footsteps crossed the room, slow, then stopped. Elias whispered something. I could not hear the words. Maybe counting trees, maybe prayer, maybe both. Then Aunt Lenora's voice came from inside the north room. "Whose room do you want?" No, Rule 8 said if Lenora is in the chair, ask whose room she wants. But she had asked first. Elias said nothing. Good. Maybe. The house shifted. The door opened wider by itself. I stepped back so I would not accidentally cross the threshold. Through the wider opening, I saw inside. The north room was not like the others. No floral wallpaper, no polished furniture, no charming old inn atmosphere. It was bare. White walls, iron bed, one wooden chair by the window, a mirror on the wall opposite the bed, covered with a gray sheet. The window was open. Snow fell inside. Aunt Lenora sat in the chair wearing a dark green dress, hands folded in her lap. She looked exactly as I remembered. Old, sharp, elegant, dead. Elias stood near the bed, facing the window. The bed was made. Rule 9. If the bed is made, unmake it before leaving. Aunt Lenora turned her head toward me. Her eyes found mine across the threshold. Clara's boy, she said. I did not answer. I was not inside. Maybe that mattered. Maybe not. She smiled. The house is full. The first page instruction. If Lenora appears in the widow's suite, tell her the house is full. This was not the widow's suite. But Morning Rule 5 said if Lenora appears there, say it. Again, the house edges. I said, the house is full. Lenora's smile faded. No house is full while one room waits. Elias reached for the bedspread. Unmake the bed before leaving. His hand shook. The covered mirror shifted on the wall. Rule 6. If Elias is present, do not let him touch the mirror. He wasn't touching it, yet. The gray sheet lifted slightly from the mirror, though there was no wind near it. Elias turned toward the movement. No, I whispered. Snow stopped falling. Rule 5 no longer applied? Maybe. Elias's eyes went to the mirror. Aunt Lenora said softly, Eliza is cold. Elias stepped toward the mirror. I could not cross the threshold, so I threw the housebook at him. It hit his shoulder hard enough to make him stumble. He cursed. The mirror sheet fell back into place. Aunt Lenora's head snapped toward me. For the first time, she looked angry, not disappointed, not amused, angry. You inherited, she said. I grabbed the edge of the door from the hallway side. Elias, the bed. He blinked like waking, then yanked the blanket off the iron bed and threw the pillows to the floor. The room exhaled. Lenora vanished from the chair. The window slammed shut. Elias staggered out into the hallway, dragging the housebook with one hand. I slammed the door. The north room key turned in the lock by itself. Elias leaned against the wall, breathing hard. You spoke. Snow stopped. You crossed? No. He looked at me then, really looked. Good. Do not make me hate that word more. He almost laughed, then didn't. At the end of the hallway, room 7's door opened. The nursery. A soft humming floated out. Rule 18. Do not enter the nursery if you hear humming. The reservation ledger had listed Room 7, the children, plural. A small red ball rolled out of the room and stopped against my shoe. I did not pick it up. Elias whispered, "Leave it." The humming grew louder. A child giggled, then another. The ball rolled backward into the room. The door stayed open. I checked the housebook. The nursery rules were written in two different hands, Aunt Lenora's and another hand that looked childish but too controlled. Room 7, the nursery rule 1, do not enter if you hear humming. Rule 2, do not count the beds. Rule 3, if a toy rolls into the hall, do not return it. Rule 4, if a child asks for breakfast, say, 7 o'clock has passed. Rule 5, if a child asks for mother, say, She is sleeping. Rule 6. If all children are quiet, close the door immediately. Rule 7. If the rocking chair moves, do not sit in it. Rule 8. If you hear your own childhood voice, leave the floor. A little girl's voice called from inside. Breakfast? Elias nodded at me. I said, 7 o'clock has passed. A boy answered, Then supper? No rule, Elias said. Guests choose breakfast only. The humming stopped. Every child inside the room went quiet. Rule 6. If all children are quiet, close the door immediately. I kicked the door shut with my foot. The moment it closed, small fists struck the other side. Not angry, playing. Pat, pat, pat. Then my own childhood voice whispered, Danny? Elias grabbed me and pulled me toward the stairs. Rule 8. If you hear your own childhood voice, leave the floor. We did. Fast. Not running exactly, but close. On the way down, I heard the wall-colored door at the end of the third-floor hall knock again. Tap, tap, tap. By the time we reached the foyer, it was 9:12 a.m. I had been in the house less than 1 day and already understood that morning was not safer. It was only brighter. Elias brewed coffee in the kitchen with hands that had not stopped shaking. I asked him again about Eliza. This time, he answered, She was my younger sister, 1978, winter storm. Briar Glen was full. Lenora had taken over from her aunt by then. Eliza came looking for me. We had argued. I was working here doing repairs, and she thought Lenora was taking advantage of me. Was she? Yes. That answer was immediate. She came after dark? He nodded. Lenora should not have admitted her, but she did. The house did. I waited. Elias stared into his coffee. The rose room was empty. It should not have been. That room is never empty in winter. Eliza stayed there one night. By morning, the wallpaper had bloomed, thorns everywhere. He swallowed. She was alive when I opened the door. The room would have let her go if I stayed out. Lenora told me that later, but Eliza asked for me, and I went in. I remembered the rule. Do not let Elias enter room 5. She died because you entered? She died because the house wanted someone to answer love with action. That's not your fault. He looked up. You haven't been here long enough to know how useless that sentence is. I had no answer. At 10:30, Elias and I returned to the ledger. The burned page had left no trace. The current date page was blank now, for about 5 seconds. Then new names wrote themselves. Room 1, Daniel Mercer. Room 2, Vacant Room 3, Vacant Room 4, Vacant Room 5, Miss Eliza Reed. Room 6, Vacant Room 7, The Children Room 8, Lenora Mercer. No Room 9, no vacancy, no Wycliffes, no Captain, no Thomas Bell. Some guests had been refused breakfast by burning the page. Others remained. Why me still? I asked. Elias touched the paper near my name, but not on it. You slept here. I slept in the office. You checked in before that. I didn't sign anything. The Maple Room recognized you before it stopped recognizing you. I thought of the cold key. Can I check out? Yes. How? He looked toward the front door. Usually, leave. And for me? The house is family. Family does not check out easily. The desk bell rang once. Both of us froze. It was morning. The general rule did not specify night only. One ring, greet the guest. Elias whispered, At the desk. I went to the reception desk. No one stood there. Welcome to Briar Glen House, I said, feeling ridiculous. The bell rang twice. No vacancy. But I had already greeted. Elias's face tightened. The bell rang a third time. Kitchen. No. It had rung 1, 2, 2, 3 in sequence. All 3 instructions. I looked at Elias. He shook his head slightly. Not kitchen? Then the bell rang a 4th time. There was no rule for a 4th ring. The brass bell cracked down the side. Aunt Lenora's voice came from the parlor. 4 means owner. The office filled with violet scent. Housebook open? No, closed on the desk. Still, the smell grew stronger. Aunt Lenora stood in the parlor doorway, not in the north room chair, not the widow's suite, the parlor. She wore the same dark green dress. Her silver hair was pinned perfectly. Her eyes were on me. "You burned a reservation page," she said. I forced myself not to step back. "The rules said to? The rules say many things. Your rules. My surviving rules." That landed. Elias stood very still beside me. Lenora looked at him. "Elias Reed, still in my halls." He said nothing. "Eliza asked for you this morning." Still nothing. Lenora smiled faintly, then looked back at me. "The unnumbered room is not a guest room." "What is it?" "A mercy." Elias made a sound low in his throat. Lenora's smile vanished. "You never understood that." "You locked people in it," he said. "I kept the house from choosing where to put them. They didn't leave. They didn't become rooms." The house creaked. Every door upstairs shifted in its frame. I said, "What does it want?" Lenora's eyes returned to me. "What every inn wants. Guests? Occupancy." That word felt worse. She stepped closer. The floorboards did not creak under her. "Briar Glen must be full by winter, or it fills itself." "It's November." "Yes." "How full?" 8 rooms. "There are 8 rooms." "There were 8 rooms," she said. From upstairs, the unnumbered door knocked. Tap, tap, tap. "The house disagrees now." I looked toward the stairwell. "Why did you leave it to me?" For the first time, Aunt Lenora's expression softened. Not kindness, maybe regret. "Because I could not leave it to someone the house wanted less." Before I could answer, Elias grabbed my arm. "Do not accept that." Lenora's eyes flashed. "She is right," Elias said to me. "That is how it starts. It tells you being wanted is duty." The parlor lights dimmed. Lenora said, "Duty kept you alive." "No," Elias said. "Cowardice did." She turned on him then, and the room temperature fell. "You always did mistake the two." The front door unlocked. We all heard it. Click. The porch light turned blue. At the same time, my phone buzzed. A voicemail from Aunt Lenora. This time, the phone played it by itself. Her recorded voice, tinny and close, said, "If the owner refuses occupancy, the house may choose from blood." The voicemail ended. Upstairs, in the nursery, children began humming. Room 5's door opened. Room 8, the widow's suite, slammed shut. The cellar knocked 3 times. Then a voice from beneath the floor whispered, "My name." Elias looked at Lenora. "What did you put in the unnumbered room?" Lenora looked toward the stairwell. The dead woman who had owned this house for decades looked afraid. That scared me more than anything she had said. "I put the first owner where the house could not count him." The blue porch light pulsed. Someone knocked on the front door from outside. Once. Twice. The desk bell rang twice with it. "No vacancy." I said, "No vacancy." The knocking stopped, but the front door opened anyway. Cold air swept into the foyer. On the porch stood the man I had seen at 4 a.m., dark coat, brimmed hat, small suitcase, snow falling only around him. This time, I could see his face, or almost see it. His features were blurred, not like fog, but like a photograph left in sunlight until the person faded and only the outline remained. Lenora whispered one word: Briar. Elias went pale. The man stepped over the threshold. The house shuddered with something like relief. Aunt Lenora screamed, "No!" That was when I understood the name of the house. Briar Glen had not been named after a place. It had been named after a person, the first owner, the one in the unnumbered room. The man removed from the house's count, the man who had just checked back in. The front door slammed shut behind him. The porch light went out. Darkness fell across the foyer, though it was still morning outside. The man with the suitcase turned his blurred face toward me and tipped his hat. "Owner," he said. Then he looked up the staircase. "Which room is vacant?" The man in the brimmed hat stood inside the foyer with snow melting around his shoes. Not spreading, not puddling, melting into the floorboards as if the house were drinking it. He held his small suitcase in one hand and looked up the staircase. "Which room is vacant?" he asked again. Nobody answered. Aunt Lenora stood near the parlor doorway, one hand against the wall. For the first time since I had seen her, she did not look like the house's mistress. She looked like someone caught trespassing. Elias had gone white. He backed away from the front desk one slow step, eyes fixed on the man. "Briar," he whispered. The man turned his blurred face toward him. "Read, boy." Elias flinched like he had been struck. The desk bell rang once. No one touched it. The man smiled. At least, I think he smiled. His face was too faded for details, but something in the blankness shifted. "One ring," he said. "Greet the guest." I could feel the rule pressing against me. Not like a command exactly, like a social expectation sharpened into a knife. The owner greets guests. The house had called me owner. The first owner stood in my foyer. The bell had rung. Elias shook his head slightly. Aunt Lenora whispered, "Don't." The desk bell rang again, twice. No vacancy. I found my voice. No vacancy. The foyer shook. The man's head tilted. "Then why is there a room waiting?" Upstairs, the unnumbered door knocked. Tap, tap, tap. The house book lay open on the office desk. I could not see it from where I stood, but I heard the pages turning, fast, frantic, as if Aunt Lenora's old rules were searching themselves for something they had forgotten to include. The man with the suitcase walked to the reception desk. Not quickly, not threateningly. That made it worse. He moved like someone who had every right to be there. He placed his suitcase on the floor beside the desk, removed his hat, and set it neatly on the counter. His head beneath the hat was no clearer than his face. Hair, skin, eyes, mouth, all softened by the same faded blur, like the house had tried to erase him, but had not finished. "You kept my room badly," he said. Aunt Lenora straightened. "I kept it closed. You kept it hungry." The floorboards creaked. Every room key behind the desk began to tremble. Maple, blue, orchard, captains, rose, north, nursery, widow's suite. Then, at the far end of the key rack, an empty hook appeared. It had not been there before. A black iron key formed slowly on it, dark metal pushing out of the wood like a tooth. Room 9, no label, no number, just a key. Frost spread from it across the wall. Elias grabbed my arm. "Do not touch it." The man looked at me. "The owner gives the key. I'm not giving you anything. You inherited the desk. No vacancy." His blurred face turned toward Aunt Lenora. "She trained him poorly." Aunt Lenora laughed once, short, bitter. "I trained him not at all. Then he'll do." The lights in the foyer dimmed. From upstairs, all 8 guest room doors opened at once. The sound came down the staircase like a row of mouths inhaling. Behind me, the dining room chairs scraped backward. The cellar knocked again, 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. Then the voice below whispered, "My name." Elias closed his eyes. The man at the desk turned his head toward the cellar door. "That one remembers." Aunt Lenora stepped forward. "No," he ignored her. "Bring it up." The cellar door under the stairs rattled, not violently, politely, like someone waiting to be invited into breakfast. Elias moved before I did. He crossed to the cellar door and planted himself in front of it. "The cellar is closed." The man's blank face shifted. "To staff, perhaps." The desk bell rang once, then twice, then 3 times. Reception. No vacancy. Kitchen. The rules overlapped again, twisting themselves into a knot. The kitchen door opened at the end of the hall. Warm yellow light spilled out. On the kitchen table, I knew without seeing it, a tray would be waiting. Coffee, plate, napkin, black key. The house was trying to make service happen. Briar Glen did not care who the guest was, only that the forms were followed. I ran to the office. The violet smell hit me before I reached the door, thick enough to taste. Rule 9. If you smell violets in the office, close the house book. But the house book was open. Pages flipped by themselves, stopping near the back. I should have closed it. Instead, I leaned over and read. The page had written itself in Aunt Lenora's hand, but the letters were shaking. Final house instructions if Briar returns. Rule 1. Do not give him a numbered key. Rule 2. Do not let him choose a room aloud. Rule 3. If he asks which room is vacant, answer with a name, not a number. Rule 4. If the seller asks for its name, do not answer unless Briar is inside the room. Rule 5. If Lenora offers to take him, refuse her. Rule 6. If Elias offers to take him, refuse him twice. Rule 7. If the house offers you ownership, do not say yes. Rule 8. If the unnumbered room opens, carry the ledger, the bell, and the black key. Do not carry the house book. Rule 9. The unnumbered room is not a bedroom. It is the first agreement. Rule 10. Agreements may be rewritten only by blood, breakfast, or fire. Below the rules, a final line appeared. I am sorry I did not burn the house when I still had hands warm enough to do it. The violet smell grew stronger. The house book slammed shut on my fingers. Pain shot through my hand. I yanked free, skin torn across 2 knuckles. Blood dripped onto the leather cover. The house went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The man at the desk looked toward the office. "Blood," he said softly. Rule 10. Agreements may be rewritten only by blood, breakfast, or fire. Elias appeared in the office doorway. He saw my hand and swore. "Do not let it drip on the ledger." Too late. 1 drop fell onto the open reservation ledger beneath the desk. The page drank it. The blank spaces filled with writing. Not one name. Many. Daniel Mercer. Lenora Mercer. Elias Reed. Eliza Reed. The children. Thomas Bell. Captain Harrow. Mr. and Mrs. Wycliffe. Briar. Vacancy. Every name listed in a circle, rooms shifting beside them too quickly to read. The house was assigning. The man at the reception desk laughed. For the first time, his voice sounded clear. Young, old, alive, dead, all at once. Breakfast then. The dining room doors opened wide. Inside, the tables were set again. This time, every chair was occupied, not by invisible guests, visible ones. Mr. and Mrs. Wycliffe sat at a table near the window, both soaked to the bone, hands folded around coffee cups, eyes locked on each other with a hatred that had outlived marriage and death. Thomas Bell sat alone before a plate of apples, smiling at a butter knife. Captain Harrow sat rigid in a naval coat that dripped seawater onto the carpet. Eliza Reed sat in the chair nearest the wall, roses blooming from the wallpaper behind her, thorns curling toward her shoulders like fingers. At the children's table, I could not count how many small figures sat there. I remembered the rule and looked away before the number formed. At the far end, Aunt Lenora sat in black at the head table. There was one empty chair beside her, one extra place setting. The man named Breyer walked toward it. "No," Lenora said. He paused. "You kept my house. I kept you out of it. You kept me hungry. You fed it first." That made him turn fully. Even blurred, his anger sharpened the room. I looked at Elias. "What does that mean?" He spoke without looking away from Eliza. The house wasn't like this before him. Breyer's hand rested on the empty chair. The dining room lights flickered. Aunt Lenora said, "He built an inn on a place that was not empty. Then he made promises to what lived under it. Warm rooms, names, doors, guests, always guests." Breyer smiled. "A good innkeeper provides. You gave it people. I gave it occupancy." The cellar knocked again. Tap, tap, tap. "My name," the voice whispered below. Breyer looked pleased. "That was the first." Elias's voice was low. "The first what?" "The first vacancy." The house book in the office thumped against the desk, though no one touched it. I understood enough to feel sick. The unnumbered room was not a bedroom. It was the first agreement. A place where Breyer had put the first person the house had taken, or the first person he had offered, or the first thing that had ever asked for a name from below. Lenora had locked Breyer away from the house's count to keep the rooms from filling themselves. But the room had waited, and now it had made itself room 9. The dining room clock struck 7. Morning again. Breakfast. Every guest lifted a fork. The black iron key behind the desk fell from its hook. It hit the floor with a sound like a nail going into a coffin. Breyer held out his hand. "The key, owner." The word owner landed on me like weight. I could feel the house waiting for my response. Yes would be an agreement. No might not be enough. Aunt Lenora stood. "Give it to me. Rule 5. If Lenora offers to take him, refuse her." "No." Her face tightened. "Daniel." "No." Elias stepped forward. "Then give it to me." Rule 6. If Elias offers to take him, refuse him twice. "No." His eyes did not leave Eliza. "I know this house. I know the room. I can take him." "No." That second refusal changed the air. Elias sagged like some old hook had been pulled from his chest. Eliza Reed looked at him from the dining room. For 1 second, the roses behind her stopped growing. Breyer turned his blurred face toward me. "You are running out of servants to sacrifice," I said. "Good." The word came out before I thought. Aunt Lenora stared. Elias looked at me sharply. The house did not like it. Every plate in the dining room cracked at once, because I had meant it. No more Lenora, no more Elias, no more letting the house choose from grief. I picked up the black iron key with my gloved hand. Even through the cotton, cold bit deep into my fingers. Rule 8. If the unnumbered room opens, carry the ledger, the bell, and the black key. Do not carry the house book. The unnumbered room had not opened yet, but it had knocked. Maybe that was enough. Maybe nothing was enough until someone made it. I grabbed the reservation ledger from the desk. Then I reached for the brass bell. Elias inhaled sharply. "Daniel, I'm not ringing it." The bell was heavier than it looked. As soon as I lifted it, the reception desk groaned like I had removed a bone from the house. The bell clapper swung silently. Briar stepped away from the dining room chair. "You do not know the first agreement." "No." "You do not know the first name." "No." "You do not know what the house wants." I looked at the full dining room, at the trembling keys, at the cellar door, at the staircase leading up to 8 rooms that remembered people better than mercy. Yes, I do. I carried the ledger, bell, and key toward the stairs. The front staircase stretched upward, more steps than before. Too many. General Rule 7 forbade the front staircase only between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock a.m. It was morning, but the house was counting differently now. Behind me, Briar said, "Owner." I stopped. He continued, "Would you like ownership? Rule 7. If the house offers you ownership, do not say yes." I said nothing. The walls creaked. The dining room guests watched. Briar's voice softened. "This house could save you, you know that. Rooms filled each season. Breakfast served. Debts paid. A name on the sign. A place in the world." It was cruel because it was practical. Not a throne, not power, just stability, money, purpose, a house that needed me. The exact shape of bait that worked on tired people. Aunt Lenora whispered, "Do not answer." I started up the stairs. The front staircase became slick beneath my shoes. Not wet, polished, like a hotel lobby floor after rain. I gripped the banister with the hand that wasn't bleeding and climbed. Elias came behind me. "No," I said, "I am not offering to take him." The stair beneath him creaked. "I'm witnessing." That word mattered. The house allowed it. Aunt Lenora followed too, gliding rather than stepping. "I told you to refuse me, not ignore me." Briar came last. Of course he did. Guests follow the innkeeper to their room. As we passed the second floor, every door opened. The blue room smelled of rain. The orchard room dropped apples from its ceiling, thudding softly on carpet. The captain's room filled with foghorns. The rose room bloomed red. The north room stayed shut. The nursery hummed. The widow's suite door upstairs opened before we reached it. At the end of the third-floor hall, the wall-colored door stood open. Not wide, just enough. Beyond it was darkness, no room visible, no floor, no furniture, just a dark, rectangular gap in the house. Above the door, a brass nameplate appeared. Room 9, vacancy. Then the words changed. Room 9, Briar. Briar stood at the top of the stairs behind us. His blurred face was clearer now. I could see the edges of eyes, the line of a mouth, a gentleman's smile. Finally, I held the ledger tighter. The black key trembled in my gloved hand. Aunt Lenora said, "Do not let him enter under his own name. Rule 3 from the final instructions. If he asks which room is vacant, answer with a name, not a number. Names mattered. Rooms mattered. Ownership mattered." Briar asked, "Which room is vacant?" I opened the ledger. The page was blank except for my bloodstain. The house waited. I thought of the cellar voice, my name, the first vacancy, the first person offered. I looked at Briar and answered, "Yours." The house flinched, not figuratively. The hall bent away from the word. Briar's smile vanished. "No." I took one step toward the unnumbered room. The black key pulled in my hand, pointing toward the darkness. Elias whispered, "Careful." I said to the open doorway, "The room is Briar's." The brass nameplate flickered. Room 9, Briar. Then Room 9, owner, no. I set the ledger on the floor before the threshold. Not inside, before it. I placed the brass bell on top of the open page. Then I held the black key over the bloodstain from my hand. Briar moved fast, too fast. He lunged toward me, suitcase dropping open behind him. Inside the suitcase was not clothing. It was full of keys, hundreds of them. Old brass keys, iron keys, bone keys, little silver luggage keys, numbered room keys, modern key cards, all tangled together like teeth. Elias grabbed Briar from behind. The two of them slammed into the hallway wall. "Eliza!" Elias shouted. The rose room door burst open on the second floor below. Vines climbed the stairwell at impossible speed. Roses bloomed along the banister, black and red, thorns curving like hooked fingers. Briar struck Elias once, and Elias hit the floor hard. Aunt Lenora stepped between Briar and me. For one moment, she looked alive again, sharp, commanding, the mistress of Briar Glen House. "You do not take another one," she said. Briar's hand went through her chest, not like flesh, like smoke through lace. Still, she gasped. The hallway lights flickered. He pulled from her something pale and thread-like. A room key, the widow's suite key. Aunt Lenora staggered. Her face aged all at once. "Lenora!" Elias shouted. She turned toward me, eyes suddenly empty of command. Only fear remained. "Refuse me," she whispered. Rule 5. If Lenora offers to take him, refuse her. She was offering herself again. I said, "No." Her expression softened. "Good boy." Then she grabbed Briar's wrist with both hands and held him long enough for the rose vines to reach. Thorns wrapped around his legs, his coat, his arms. He screamed, and this time his face came into focus. A handsome man, middle-aged, cold eyes, human enough to hate. I took the black key and pressed it into the blood on the ledger page. Then I rang the bell. Once. The sound was small, clear, final. "Greet the guest," I said. "Welcome to Briar Glen House." The hallway doors slammed open. Every room answered. The blue room poured rain across the ceiling. The orchard room dropped rotten apples down the stairs. The captain's room roared with seawater. The nursery children laughed. The rose room pulled tight with thorns. The north room window blew open somewhere unseen, and winter entered like a held breath released. The widow's suite door banged against its frame. Briar screamed, "I am the owner!" Rule 7, do not say yes. So I did not answer him. I turned the black key in the blood. There was no lock. It turned anyway. The ledger page burned around it. Not white flame this time. Orange, real orange, fire, Rule 10. Agreements may be rewritten only by blood, breakfast, or fire. We had all three, my blood. Breakfast below, fire in the ledger. Words wrote themselves through the flame. First agreement, void. Briar Glen House shall not take guests without consent. Rooms shall not choose the living. No vacancy shall be filled by blood. Owner status declined. Briar tore one arm free of the roses. He lunged for the ledger. Aunt Lenora stepped into him, not blocking, entering. Her shape folded into his like smoke into cloth. He staggered, choking. Her voice came from his throat. "Daniel, close the book." I reached for the ledger. The flames licked my gloves but did not burn skin. I slammed it shut on the black key. The bell cracked. The hallway went dark. For 1 second, I heard every room in the house scream. Not people, rooms. Memory resisting being rewritten. Then the unnumbered room opened wide. Inside was not darkness anymore. It was the cellar, the true cellar. Stone walls, packed earth floor, a wooden chair, a table, an old ledger. A man's skeleton seated upright with its hands nailed to the armrests. Above it, written on the stone in black, was a name. Not Briar, the first vacancy. Martha Glen, Briar Glen. Not a place, not one person, two names. Briar had built the house. Martha Glen had been the first person he gave to it. He had taken her name, joined it to his, and called it an inn. The cellar voice whispered, "My name." Now I knew. I stood at the threshold and said, "Martha Glen." The house stopped screaming. The skeleton in the chair collapsed into dust. The cellar beneath us exhaled. Briar's body, tangled in roses, and Lenora's shadow, jerked backward toward the open room. "No," he said. For the first time, he sounded small. Aunt Lenora's face appeared over his shoulder, half-formed, tired, almost peaceful. She looked at Elias. "I am sorry about Eliza." Elias was on the floor, blood at his hairline, eyes wet. "Too late," he said. Lenora nodded. "Yes." Then she pulled Briar into room 9. The door slammed shut. The brass nameplate fell off and hit the floor. The black key, ledger, and cracked bell vanished. Silence. For a moment, none of us moved. Then every room door closed gently. One by one, Maple, Blue, Orchard, Captain's, Rose, North, Nursery, Widow's. The wall-colored door at the end of the hall sealed itself into the wall until there was no knob, no outline, no trace. Elias was the first to speak. "Did you give it ownership?" "No." "Did you accept ownership?" "No." "Did you name Martha?" "Yes." He closed his eyes. "Then maybe." "Maybe what?" He looked down the stairs. "Maybe breakfast is over." We helped each other down. The house looked smaller, not physically exactly, but less crowded. The dining room was empty when we reached it. No guests, no plates of impossible food, no coffee, no flowers, only bare tables and chairs pushed in neatly. In the Rose Room, Eliza Reed was gone. Elias checked despite the rule, and this time I let him stand in the doorway while I stood behind him with one hand gripping his coat. The wallpaper had no roses, just faded pink stripes. On the bed lay a dried rose, white and thornless. Elias picked it up. Nothing stopped him. He cried then, silently, the kind of crying old men do when they have spent too long making sure no one sees. In the nursery, there were no beds, no toys, no humming, only an empty room with dust on the floor and sunlight on the wall. The north room still felt cold, but not alive. The window was shut. The mirror was cracked down the middle. The widow's suite smelled faintly of violets, but when I opened the door, no one called my name. In the foyer, the reservation ledger was blank. Not waiting blank, just blank. A business ledger with old pages. The room keys behind the desk were room keys, warm from the house, not from occupancy. Elias found the house book in the office. The leather cover had split where my blood had fallen. Most of the pages were blank now. The general rules remained, but many had faded. Some were gone completely. Do not open the unnumbered room was gone. If the unnumbered room appears on the reservation ledger, burn the page was gone. If the house says please, it is lying remained. That one stayed dark. At the back, where the final instructions had appeared, Aunt Lenora had written one last line. "Daniel, a house is not forgiven because it stops screaming. Neither are we. Do not reopen before spring." Under that, in smaller writing, "And do not serve maple syrup from the cellar." I almost laughed. It came out half sob. Elias read it over my shoulder. "Sounds like her. What do I do now?" He looked around the office. "Sleep somewhere else." That was the best advice anyone had given me since I inherited Briar Glen. We left through the kitchen door because neither of us trusted the front entrance yet. Outside, The air was cold and bright. The porch light was off. The sign near the road hung still. For the first time since I arrived, the house looked empty. Not hungry, empty. Elias drove me to his cabin 2 miles down the road. I slept on his couch for 16 hours. When I woke, he had made coffee and toast, and my phone had 37 missed calls from the lawyer, the insurance company, and a realtor I had not hired. No voicemails from Aunt Lenora, no unknown numbers, no house phone ringing in my head. For 3 days, I did not go back. On the 4th, Elias and I returned in daylight. We found every exterior door locked. Normally, every window shut. The cellar door beneath the stairs stood open. Inside was an ordinary cellar: boiler, electrical panel, shelves of preserves, stone walls, packed earth, no chair, no table, no skeleton. But in the far wall, one stone had been carved with a name, Martha Glenn, beneath it. First guest released. Elias took off his cap. I did too. We left the cellar open until sunset, then locked it. Not because it asked, because some doors deserve closing after they finally become only doors. I did not sell Briar Glen House that winter, not because I loved it, not because I had suddenly become brave, because Aunt Lenora was right about one thing. A house is not forgiven because it stops screaming. It still needed watching. I shut down the bed and breakfast listing, canceled old reservations, paid what debts I could, sold furniture that was safe to sell, burned furniture that wasn't. The guest room stayed closed until spring. When spring came, I reopened only 2 rooms: the maple room, the blue room. No walk-ins after dark, no guests without signed reservations. No one stayed more than 2 nights. No one stayed alone in the house except me, and even that took time. I made new rules, normal ones for guests. Check-in between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. Breakfast at 8. No smoking. No pets without approval. Quiet hours after 10, then hidden ones for me. Keep the house book closed unless a room key changes temperature. Never let a guest request a room by number. If a door appears where no door should be, leave through the kitchen. If the desk bell rings more than once with no one at the desk, say no vacancy and step outside. If the house says please, sleep somewhere else. Elias still comes by. Not every day, but often. He tends the garden now. He planted white roses under the second-floor windows, thornless ones. He said he hates them less than he expected. In June, a woman stayed in the blue room and told me in the morning that she dreamed of rain and a couple arguing in the hallway. I comped her breakfast and closed the room for a week. In July, a child staying with his parents asked why the 3rd floor used to have more doors. I told him old houses feel bigger at night. He accepted that because children are smarter than adults about which lies are kind. In October, I found a red maple leaf on the floor of room 1 at midnight. I did not remove it. In November, on the anniversary of the day I arrived, the reception desk bell rang once at 4 a.m. I came downstairs with a flashlight and the housebook under one arm. No one stood at the desk. No one waited on the porch. But the reservation ledger was open. On the page for that date, one line had written itself. Room 9, no vacancy. I burned the page anyway, not because I was afraid, because I had learned not to let the house practice old handwriting. So if you ever inherit a bed and breakfast from a relative you barely knew, read every book they leave behind. If the desk bell rings once, greet the guest. If it rings twice, say no vacancy. If it rings 3 times, go to the kitchen. If it rings 4 times, do not accept ownership. If a room key is warm, the room is occupied. If it is cold, the room is waiting. If it bleeds, close for the season. Do not sleep in the north room. Do not count the beds in the nursery. Do not let anyone named Briar choose a room. And if you ever find an unnumbered door in a house that calls itself an inn, remember this: vacancy is not emptiness. Vacancy is invitation. And some houses do not care whether the guest is living, dead, or simply missing a name. They only care that every room is full.